Morning. Good morning. I now call the August 13th, 2026 Administrative Briefing and Work Session of the Marion County School Board to order at 9 a.m. Please silence your electronic devices to avoid disturbing others. Mirroring and modeling how our students begin each day, I ask that you please pause with us for a moment of silence. Please join me. That was a little distracting. I will now read our board commitment statement. We are the Marion County School District Leadership Team. When we come together to work, we are efficient, effective, and productive. Our three most important characteristics are dedicated, transparent, and individually responsible. To work well together, we must demonstrate respect, confront reality, and be accountable. We will always put students first, and we will leave a legacy of success. I would like to ask the school board attorney to explain the rules for this public workshop. Good morning, Attorney Powers.
Good morning, and thank you, Board Chair. This work session is a public meeting as defined in Florida's Sunshine Law. The board is dedicated to full transparency in its meetings and its work. In compliance with the Sunshine Law, the board's adopted uniform meeting procedures, including the right for citizens to participate. The board will allow public comment regarding any work session item listed on today's agenda at the appropriate time. Speakers must fill out a request form located in the lobby and hand it to the board clerk. After the board and superintendent have completed their discussion on a particular agenda item, the board clerk will call the speakers' names in the order received. Each speaker will have 3 minutes, as required by Sunshine Law. The board must maintain orderly conduct and proper decorum throughout this meeting. Finally, speakers must be very careful not to violate the privacy rights of others, including students and their family members, by mentioning their names or other identifying information. Thank you for your attention to these important rules.
Thank you, Attorney Powers. Ms. Martinez-Young, can you please provide the proof of publication for this morning's meeting?
The notice for the August 13th, 2026 Special Administrative Briefing and Work Session was published on the district website on August 6, 2026. Proof of notification has been attached to board docs under proof of publication.
All right, thank you. I am going to hand it over to our superintendent for her briefing.
Good morning. Thank you. Board, I also want to make you aware that as of this morning, item 5.1 is not showing on board docs, but it is on our script, and that topic that I wanted us to be able to discuss is the legislative priorities. But if it's not on the agenda, but if you don't mind at the end or maybe in your comments, we can add that. I also want to comment, as of yesterday afternoon, we had 44,000 students that attended our schools, so our enrollment continues to climb. We are excited that today we will have all kindergartners on site. As most are aware, we do staggered kindergarten, and so each day a group has attended, and now today they will all be there together. So we're looking forward to a great day. Also, I just want to acknowledge some transportation challenges that we have had this week. Challenges come from a variety of reasons, but one main reason is we had an update in our student database system that has prevented lots of challenges. And so we have communicated those challenges to our school principals, and we are very, I can't say confident, but we are very hopeful that today we have all of the updates correct and the student information is accurate. So we're looking forward to a great day. Also, I want to comment on our board meeting Tuesday night. There was discussion about Wyoming Park Elementary. So I want to share some dates publicly, and of course this will come out in other methods as well. But Mr. Whitehouse and I will meet with the Wyoming Park staff on August the 19th at the end of their school day. We'll also have 2 community sessions available for the Wyoming Park families so they can provide input. That will take place on August 27th. One session will be at 9 a.m. right here in the Brown, Greet, and Cole Auditorium at 9 a.m. And then at 6 p.m. we will meet at the Fort King Middle School in the cafeteria. This will allow families to come and provide input. We will use many different ways to communicate this. We'll use our Aptitude for our school families. We'll mail letters home. We will also update the information on our school and district website, and physical letters will be given to students. We will also bring this back to a work session on September the 17th, 2026, and as always, that work session is recorded and available online for families to watch. Also, in addition to those community meetings, we will begin the rezoning community meetings in October for the other schools that we have discussed in previous work sessions. So those are my comments, Chair.
All right, thank you, Dr. Brewer. Then we are going to kick it off with item 4.1, which is our tentative budget, all other funds, with Mr. Rios-Welsh, our CFO. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right.
Come on down. Good morning, Chair James, board members, Dr. Brewer, members of the public. Thank you for this opportunity to be here this morning. I hope that folks are tuning in because we have a lot of really good information that we're going to go through today. I'm going to walk you guys through how the presentation will go. It'll start with some opening remarks, and then I will kick it over to our budget director, Ms. Michelle Markham. She's going to walk us through a recap of our millages, how our revenue is generated from those millages, our capital fund, and then Ms. Stephanie Crowder, our finance director, will come up and she will talk through debt service, and I will round us out with going through all of the other funds, including the food service fund and special revenue and internal service fund. So with that, I will begin my comments, and at any point, of course, Chair James, you are more than welcome to stop me and ask any questions.
Okay, I open it up to the board for that privilege too. So if you feel the need to talk, just, if you can't get my attention, just shout out.
Great, thank you. So today I'll be presenting the continued portion of the FY 26-27 tentative budget. This presentation focuses on capital projects fund, the debt service fund, special revenue fund, including food service, special revenue, including federal, state, and local grants, and internal service fund. These funds are separate from the general fund operating budget, which we went over last week, but essentially really serve the district's long-term financial stability and operating success. I want to frame today's presentation around one central message. The budget is not simply about funding projects for 1 year. It is about laying the groundwork and laying the financial groundwork, for the future for Marion County Public Schools. Over the past year, the district has developed several major documents, including the 5-year strategic plan, the 5-year capital plan, which is going to be coming up for a vote soon, the facilities master plan, and the future focused operations plan, which was previously partially approved in a previous board meeting this week. On top of all of that, we have our deferred maintenance schedule, which drives a lot of the work related to the capital fund. And taken together, these documents tell a consistent story. Marion County is growing. Many of our facilities are aging. Construction and maintenance costs are rising, and the district must continue to use restricted capital and special revenue funds in a disciplined, transparent, and strategic way. The strategic plan identifies fiscal responsibility as a core priority, including improved financial transparency, strategic budgeting via site-based budgeting, and also including external funding and long-term financial stability, the least of which is not a 10% fund balance aspirational goal. The 5-year capital plan identifies significant residential growth pressures, including more than 41,000 future land use residential units and more than 64,000 approved unbuilt units, with a conservative projected enrollment growth of approximately 600 students annually. The facilities master plan notes that more than 40% of the district's campuses were built before 1980. That long-term deferred and immediate major maintenance needs were initially estimated at approximately $2.9 billion over 20 years. The future-focused operations plan provides a path forward by focusing on facility replacement, modernization, fewer portables, operational efficiency, and long-term cost avoidance. The plan identifies replacement of 11 aging facilities, modernizing our existing schools, and a reduction of 86 classroom portables, and approximately $150 million in deferred maintenance avoidance. And also, we have the opportunity to save millions of dollars in annual operating savings that would compound over time. So with this, we will get into the presentation, and we're going to really delve into the numbers, and we want to make sure that we do a couple things. One, we protect taxpayers-owned assets, improve learning environments, and address safety and infrastructure needs, manage debt, and preserve flexibility as we prepare for future growth. So with that, I'm going to ask Ms. Michelle Markham to come up, and she's going to begin the presentation, and then I will come back up and provide a response to a few questions that the board posed in our last meeting, and then we will continue through the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rios-Welsh. Good morning.
Morning.
Board Chair James, Dr. James, Superintendent Dr. Brewer, board members, Attorney Powers, colleagues, and community members. Thank you for allowing me to present the 26-27 tentative capital outlay budget. Let's go here. But first, we need to go back to this slide that you saw last week. This is a comprehensive outlook of our total budget of $1.2 billion. The amount that we're going to discuss today over the different sections is $566.9 million, of which 310 is the capital outlay, which I will be talking about shortly. I'd like to take a little bit of a privilege and say happy anniversary, work anniversary to the CFO. It's his 1-year anniversary today.
It's like a survival badge. You survived the year.
Congratulations.
So let's get into it. As you had seen last week, this is the millage levies, and what we want to point out today is the local capital improvement millage did not change, either did the additional voted millage. What's important here on slide 4 is that the taxable value that we use against those millages did increase by 8.75%, which was a $3.7 billion increase. So you multiply those millages by those amounts, and you see an increase in the local capital improvement fund by $5.4 million, and the voter approval, the 1 mil at $3.6 million. So that's a windfall for us. Moving on to slide 5. This one is very interesting, and what this looks at is if the state policymakers had kept the mills at 2 and didn't lower those. This is the foregone opportunity for capital outlay. Cumulatively, it's $212.8 million of foregone opportunity for capital outlay. And we keep this in here because we're trying to stress the point that we have to use the resources that we have, right? And so I thought this was very interesting. And as you know, in 2007-8, local capital funding was fully funded not fully funded, but was funded at the 2 mills. And then it was reduced in 2009 to 1.7, and then reduced further to 1.5, where we are today. And unfortunately, we don't have control over this. This is decided in Tallahassee. Okay, so now we're going to get into the details of the Capital Projects Fund. The total Capital Projects Fund revenues are budgeted currently at $310.6 million, with a beginning fund balance of $192.8 million. Planned expenditures total $279.7 million, and this excludes the ending fund balance. That will be updated as we move towards the adopted. The revenue sources here are $67.2 million in the 1.5 mils. We also call this Local Capital Infrastructure Fund. $38.7 million in voter-approved sales tax, which is the 1 mil, $8.3 million in impact fees, $2 million from CO and DS, which is state funding for specific purposes, and $192 million in the beginning fund balance in prior year project balances. Like I said, the ending fund balance will be updated at the final budget. What do we do with these funds? Right now, we're budgeted at 39.4 for remodeling and renovation. This includes a lot of the deferred maintenance. 25.7 million to pay debt service. Ms. Crowder will discuss the debt service a little bit later. 9.9 million for improvements other than buildings, which include technology items. 9.4 million is used to offset maintenance costs that go back into the general fund. 8.2 million are for FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. These, these items get worn down and we have to replace those. So that's what that is for. 7.8 million is for buses and vehicles, and 1.3 is the required pass-through to charter schools. And here's further detail on the different funding sources and their beginning balances, the budgeted revenue and the budget expenditures. And you can see that each one of these items are restricted for a specific purpose. So when we do capital outlay, we need to be very cognizant of what the ordinance and the statutes deem the funding source for. We also have had questions and concerns about the PICO funding. I wanted to just tell a little story here. I used to do the PICO capital in Tallahassee. I was the person that did the estimating and the distribution for the Department of Education and then eventually the governor. So what had happened here is there was a funding formula that encompassed the universities, the colleges, the K-12s, and the charter schools. And there was a formula based on the communication sales tax data. Well, when charter schools came on board, they didn't have the capability to raise their own millages. So the legislature decided, we had to make a policy because they don't have the funds to do their maintenance. And so that's how that came to be back in the day. And that's what happened. So the K-12 traditionals, their funding for PICO ended in 2019. And then as you see, the charter school allocation came in 1920. So the district still sees those funds, but they go to the charter schools. The next slides, we're going to quickly go through impact fees. And so this used to be, you guys had seen these slides. This used to be 2 slides where they did the historical, which was that first part, the 2006-07 down to the 2010-11. I combined the slide because I wanted to show that this has become more complex as the dwelling types have changed. So the counties are now taking those collections, and actually they're looking at the dwellings and they're charging different rates for different types of dwellings. So the data is very comprehensive now, and is interesting to see because I've been looking at the data, and a lot of the charges or rates throughout the EBDs are at 4307.
Ms. Markham, I want to say something. Board,
Yes, ma'am.
on September the 3rd, one of our agenda items for that work session is the debt service. And so there will be a full topic and a work session for this item. Thank you, Ms. Markham.
Thank you. So historically, we just wanted to show the ebb and flows of this. From 2006-11, the total is 11 million total, and then it dropped off for economic reasons, and then we brought it back, and then it was brought back in 2024-25. These are actual collections, 11.6 million in 25, and then 25-26, we're looking at 12, and then the tentative budget is at 8.2. We are currently looking at the receipts to see if we need to adjust that number, but that will be part of that whole discussion that we have later on in the work session. Sales tax, kind of the same thing. These were put on hold and because of economic reasons. It came back in 24-25. I guess the winning year was 24-25, right? Came back in at 24-25, and we're seeing an increase year over year for this. The tentative budget is at 38.7. We are also looking at those receipts that came in July. It looks like this is actually in the target is in line. And you have all the effective dates and the dates of when things came in and came off and came in and came off and were implemented. So I'm not going to go through that because you have it. We also have added the charter school distribution to the slide. That is, that's of interest to everyone at this point. So going forward, I will, where necessary, we'll add the charter school distributions and the charter school information as we move forward. Next slide shows the capital projects that we have listed out. We do it in 3 parts. The funded projects, you have a full list. The key investments here, the total actually is $104 million. The key investments include new Bellevue Elementary School at $20 million, district-wide HVAC upgrades and replacement, which includes 2 large pieces at Greenway Elementary and Bellevue Middle School. Those total together $12 million. The new data center, $4.5 million, district-wide stadium lighting improvements at $4 million, bus replacement, and this was kind of discussed last week, at $4 million. It's budgeted at $4 million. Technology infrastructure at $1 million. This budget continues to fund ongoing investments, including roofing, flooring, security, playgrounds, transportation, and of course, facility maintenance. We also have $104.2 million in carryover projects. These are projects, as you know, with capital outlay, they tend to go over the traditional one-year annual budget. It's just the nature of these type of projects. They straddle fiscal years. Capital projects tend to take a little longer than your average general fund items. So what we have here is the carryover projects. Hopefully these will be closed out soon, and that 104 will go down. You'll also notice that some of the project names are the same as the ones on the other slide, and it's just because these are phased projects, and we just go from there. Last slide on this is we wanted to show the COPS 24 projects, which are at $68.2 million. We also have grants, capital outlay grants for $900,000, and then we broke out the charter school distribution at $2.1 million. So the grand total of the capital project expenditure side that we're budgeted for is $279.7 million.
And you can confirm that $279 million is a part of the $1.2 billion budget, right?
Yes.
I mean, I know the answer, I'm just kind of looking to
Yes, it is.
make a point. So,
Yes.
there's many who believe that we have $1.2 billion to pay people, and we do not.
No, capital cannot be used for that purpose. Capital is for projects, renovation capital, new construction, renovation, technology, the stuff.
So when you remove all of our capital projects that are budgeted for this year, our budget is less than $1 billion.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So I had some closing remarks. Sorry. In summary, the capital project budget invests nearly $280 million in our facilities, technology, transportation, and growth needs. These are funded through local millage, voter-approved sales tax revenues, impact fees, and prior year revenues. The district continues to move forward with major construction projects while prioritizing maintenance and modernizing our existing schools despite the ebb and flow of state funds. So we're doing the best we can with our resources. So I will turn this back over to the CFO. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Markham. I do want to add that Michelle joined us earlier this year and has jumped in with 2 feet. And I'm very proud that she is getting along with her staff and working well together. And it is a monumental task to come in at the time that she did, right in the middle of budget development, and take over a budget office with a operation as complicated as ours. So thank you. To underscore the previous point that she made, and to Dr. James' point in terms of emphasizing to the public, you know, last week, I came and gave a very long presentation, and I hope folks go back and watch it if they are so interested in learning about how our budget works. But 54% of our budget is that general fund that I spoke about last week, and today we're going over the other 46%. So I think that tells folks everything they need to know in terms of what is restricted and is really required for us to operate and manage our facilities versus general operating funds that we can use to pay our teachers. There are some nuances there, and I will get into that as I get into the special revenue portion of the meeting, as those dollars do help to fund additional units. But I want to take an opportunity just to go back to some questions that were raised last week before Ms. Crowder comes up. And so let me look through my notes. So one of the questions that was posed was to clarify the indirect cost rate applied to schools via site-based budgeting. We have confirmed that for elementary schools, it was 9%, elementary schools was 14%, and middle schools was 19%. This actually makes sense if you think about it, given that the high schools are larger, have larger student populations, require larger staff. And as we continue through this process, and the way I look at it is the budget process is ongoing year-round process. And so once we enter into budget development and site-based training, which we will kick off in October, we will take a look back at those rates and constantly refine what those indirect cost rates need to look like, but I wanted to share that information. And then the second question that we had, and the board members all have a handout, is the amount of dollars that we provide to each of the charter schools broken down by funding source. And so you'll have a document there that's titled the 26-27 Charter School Budgeted Allocations. You'll see there on the left side of that schedule all of the charter schools, and then you see the projected enrollment, followed by referendum dollars there, totaling about $1 million, PICO dollars at about $748,000. To Mr. Reverend Cummings' question last week, in LCIF at almost $500,000, sales tax $860,000, and FEFP distribution at $9.6 million, all told $12.7 million. I'll just round up to $13 million at a per student rate of about $10,345 for all of the charter schools, and that number continues to grow as charter schools continue to grow throughout the state. So I wanted to make sure that we put a pin in that. Are there any questions?
Point of clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't pass through the FEFP dollars, though. So the only the thing that, with the 9 million of the 12 million is not a pass-through. Because they get that money directly.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yeah.
Because I think part of the point that many of us board members are trying to make is to identify all of the money that we're passing through that is sitting on top of our budget, but we're not actually realizing. So to be clear, 9 million of this 12 is not a pass-through. It is, we never see it on our budget. We are passing through 3 million, but we aren't passing through the other 9.
Well, just point of clarification, if it comes through FEFP, we're recognizing it on our books, but correct, those dollars, and I think this has come up in some of our previous meetings, yes, we have to allocate those legally to charter schools, and we are not responsible and do not manage the charter school operations.
The charter school FEFP money is not a part of our $1.2 billion budget. Or it is.
It's included in the FEFP allocation.
That's what I'm trying to make sure I understand. So all 12 million of this, you take off the top.
Yes, yeah, essentially, that is correct. And it could be just nomenclature, Dr. James, but you are correct that folks need to understand that those dollars that come to charter schools, we have to recognize them for accounting purposes, but they end up with the charter schools directly. We do not have authority, as it were, to control what the charter schools do with the funds, and nor did we control the legislation that required that we give them the funds, if that helps to clarify that.
Absolutely. I think as board members, when we have conversations in the community, what we're looking to be able to kind of dismay is how much we're taking off the top and what we're really left with. And so when you include the family empowerment, which I think you said was going to be somewhere about 75 million this year, we're looking at about 85 or 90 million taking off the top for charters and FEF family empowerment, right?
Yes, that is correct.
And then you take off another 275 million for capital. And so that's kind of what we've been trying to get to is because school financing is an incredibly complex, it's so hard to explain. And so when I talk to people, I try to make it as simple as possible. And so just saying, charter and family empowerment takes 80 million, and then we have 280 million for capital projects. And when you take these big buckets out, this is what's left, which is what we actually are working with.
Absolutely. And I will also say that, again, a lot of this is education for the public. I can certainly appreciate that our budget is complicated, right? But there are several opportunities throughout the year for the public not only to learn, but to come and participate, and we always encourage that. We also have our MCPS Leadership Forum for the community where folks can apply and actually basically attend classes, where even last year I came in and explained this in excruciating detail to that cohort, which was very fun. I don't get to kind of get in front of the chalkboard, as it were, often with members of the public, so I certainly always appreciate the chance to get up and explain this, because it is extremely complicated, but that's why we're here with a very capable team. The last thing, if I may, is just to address the question related to the cost to educate. So last week the question was posed as what goes into that calculation, so I just wanted to clarify that the $10,980 for the 24-25 year is related strictly to the general fund in terms of how that is computed. For the current $12,500 projected cost that we see, that includes all funds. So you can imagine, if you look at the previous slide here, go back a little bit, all funds, there we go. So that would effectively mean that those first three boxes there for general fund referendum, adult education, and general fund operating would be how that 10,980 figure is derived, and then all the other funds would drive that cost to educate up, because you have to include the cost of transport, food, and all the other things that go into the total cost to educate a student. So I wanted to make sure that we were clear on that. As the staff is actually right now in the midst of working on the new cost report, we will provide that information to the public. And again, our website is very robust. We provide that information. We're legally required to, and we try to be as transparent as possible so that the public can go out there and see through the federal DOE, through the state DOE website, smorgasbord of data that is extremely useful for folks to understand the value that the taxpayers are getting. With that, if there's not any more questions, I'm going to ask Ms. Stephanie Crowder, our finance director, to come up, and she's going to walk us through the next portion of the presentation. Let me tee this up. Okay.
Mr. Christian, can we have the slides updated on this monitor? All we can see is ourselves. We just can't see it. We just see our video. we were able to see them at the beginning. Thank you, Ms. Carter. Just hold on one second.
Sure.
Should we take a recess so that we can make sure the community sees the PowerPoint? Okay.
There it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Welsh, for the introduction. Good morning, board, Dr. Brewer. I'm Stephanie. This is our first time meeting face-to-face, Director of Finance. Thank you for this opportunity. I've been blessed with the opportunity to discuss our debt service fund. Should be nice and easy. So as you can see, our total revenue is, we'll call that $26 million. 99% of that is coming in from transfers for the capital that Ms. Markham previously discussed. We have a small portion, less than 1%, that comes from the state, the $223,000 for the Racing Commission, and a very even smaller portion for interest. On the flip side, for our expenses, you will see we pay about $11 million just to the principal of this debt and $15 million to interest. And we have a very small annual fee that we have to pay of $8,000. This slide is just a breakdown of the revenue. Again, the Racing Commission, $223,000. The local is the interest that we're getting, and the expenses showing the 25 million. Oh no, I'm sorry, those are the transfer ins. Here are our expenses. As you can see, the redemption of principal is $11 million. Interest, again, is $15 million, and our small portion of fees. Of that, the certificate of participation is $24 million. The revenue bonds coming in right at $200,000, and the leases for the buses at $1.8 million. So we have a grand total of $25.9 million in expenses. Here's a list of our outstanding debt as of June 30th, 2026. You can see that our Series 2013 revenue bonds will have a final payout of December 2031. We have two different COBs. The Series 2015B will be over at June of 2027. And the Series 2024 bond is over in June of 2044. Our buses will be over in March of 29, and that is a comprehensive list of our debt at $348 million. The next slide is letting you know that Florida statute allows us to have 75% of the capital outlay millage levy can be used for debt, and we are currently at 38%, so we're doing very well there.
Ma'am, can you repeat that slower, real slower?
I'm sorry. Yes, the Florida statute allows us.
The reason I'm asking because the perception in the community is that we are just, we're about to go bankrupt, and I need that to be clearly stated, slowly. Thank you.
Sure. The Florida statute would allow us to use 75% of the capital outlay millage that can be used for debt payments, but we are currently only using 38% of that revenue towards debt.
Thank you.
Sure. Our final slide is our credit ratings, showing that we're doing really well. This helps us in any future debt to get us our best interest rates and things like that. So Fitch thinks that we are an AA minus and an A plus for COPS. Moody's has our general obligation at an AA3, and certificate of participation, which is also known as COPS, is an A1. All very good items. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions. Nope. Back to you, Mr. Welsh.
And to recap, we're having a more in-depth conversation on this in September.
September 3rd during the work session.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Crowder. And again, I will reiterate similar comments. Mrs. Crowder joined the team shortly after I did. I think we were within a week or two. So I think you're going to have an anniversary here pretty soon as well. And she's done a great job managing her team and really stepping in with 2 feet. So thank you. And thank you to the entire budget and finance team and all of the folks, particularly in facilities and those that really work behind the scenes to get all of this documentation pulled together, including Mr. Whitehouse and, of course, Dr. Brewer under her leadership. I did want to add just a couple of other comments related to our credit ratings and debt. You know, as we've had these conversations, sometimes there is that perception, to Mr. Cummings' point, that you know, public organizations seem to be laden with debt, or that maybe they're teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. I can certainly sit here as CFO and tell you that is absolutely not the case here in Marion County. Our financial position is extremely strong, and we have billions of dollars worth of assets. However, I do want to just emphasize the point that there's a big difference between consumer debt, household debt, and public sector organizational debt or corporate debt. In our case, we are operating a very sophisticated organization that, as previously stated, is a $1.2 billion budget. And so we have close to 7,000 employees, 54 schools, charter schools, a lot of moving pieces. And so I just think that it's important to point out to the public that we're comparing apples and oranges here, and they're not the same. They are not the same at all. And the purposes of debt and leveraging debt in order for us to construct schools, maintain our facilities, is much different than a household budget just replacing a roof or one HVAC unit or a coil in an HVAC unit at your private home. So I do want to just make that clear because sometimes the public gets confused about that. The other thing is related to our credit ratings, although we are certainly in a strong position in terms of our borrowing capacity, and we want to continue down that trajectory so that our borrowing costs are lower over time when we need them. And as we've continued these conversations around future projects related to potential COPs, I do just want to point out that organizations like Moody's have provided a kind of an advisory to the public in terms of U.S. public finance, that here in Florida, many districts are facing very serious fiscal challenges. And so credit ratings are well aware of that, and we have to be cognizant of that as we continue to operate and move forward with our strategy. The last thing I'll mention is that we have 2 new projects related to COPS in the Future Focus Plan that were partially approved this week, and we know we're going to have some community meetings to get further input related to Waimea or any other moving parts. But those plans, we will put out a revised trim notice so that we can make sure we have the proper funding and public notice if we're going to be going down that road, because we are starting to encumber and spending dollars on the pre-development work. And so now that we have approval from the board to do that, we will make sure that everything ticks and ties, and you will see those projects on our list as time goes on. And then lastly, the capital improvement plan and all of the plans that we have budgeted that Ms. Markham went over earlier, I'd like to just make the point that, you know, we really want to consider that almost like a living document. Because the fact of the matter is, we could have a hurricane tomorrow, and some things may have to get pushed around or moved. And so I think the board can appreciate through the meetings that we have on a regular basis, change orders and the like, that there's a constant moving and shuffling based on real-time data and reality. And I just want folks to make sure they understand that it's not just a stagnant document that just stays the same forever. It does have the tendency to ebb and flow, and we must move the district as needed as issues come up. I'll pause there for a moment if there's any questions.
Anything? Okay.
Okay. If not, we're going to move into the next portion of the meeting, which is food service, the food service fund. And the food service fund is restricted, as mentioned earlier, which means that this particular fund is not interchangeable with other funds. We can only use it to provide nutritious food to our students. And I want to emphasize that. We are not just providing food. We have a nutritionist on staff. Our team, under Ms. Belcher's leadership, works tirelessly with our food service workers to make sure that students have the nutrients that they need to learn. And that's extremely important, whether it's during the school year or it's during the summer. That being said, the budget all total revenue, excluding fund balance, it's at close to $55 million. And you see there, the left side there, that pie chart with the federal through state at $51.8 million, or 51.9, or 95%. Smaller transfers in at 0.04%, or 22,000. Local dollars at $2,083,000, or rounding up to 4%, and a sliver of state funds there at $472,000, or a little less than 1%, which I'll get into the detail there. On the expenditure side of the house, excluding fund balance, we sit at $58.3 million, rounding up. And you see there the lion's share going towards salary and benefits at $21 million, or 36%, and rounded out by other smaller areas, including other capital purchase services, energy services, and of course, you see that 45% there, which is materials and supplies. I can tell you that most of that money is going towards food, absolutely. Okay, so let's look at this. I also wanted to mention that, and I'll get into it a little bit later detail, the indirect cost rate for our food service, food and nutrition program ranges to about 3 to 4%. It's gradually been ticking up over time. And the other category on this particular chart there that you see does include things like fees, dues and fees, let's see, fast track substitutes and indirect cost, miscellaneous technology expenses as well. Okay, so let's look at this profit and loss for food service. I do want to give a big shout out to Mr. Danny Temple. He's one of our analysts and does a great job, one of our accountants that does a great job of helping to manage the day-to-day dollars that are coming in and out of food service. But as you can see, on the left side here, you have the fiscal year and the profit and loss by year. We are estimating that in 26-27, we will run a loss of $2.6 million. In the graph there, you can see how over the last 10, 11 years, you've seen that number ebb and flow from a low of 386 to a high there where you can see that huge uptick in 22-23 related to ESSER funds that we received. And then you can see that it's dropped below the pre-COVID amounts there going back to 15-16. And so it is kind of on the downward side, but it is a function of revenue that is spent, and we are reimbursed for those. And then, of course, the red line there kind of acts as a break-even point. But needless to say, we do, and I will talk a little bit about fund balance in a second, have several projects there. So we constantly monitor this, and we usually always over budget for food expenses because it's kind of hard to predict exactly how much food we will need. And so the budget folks for food service usually try to provide a buffer there so that we can make sure we can always provide high-quality food to our students. So let's talk about the revenue at a high level. Again, this is just to break out the same for the pie charts that I previously went through. You can see there the $52.8 million for 25-26. The next column has the actuals coming in. There may be some expenses. As you guys know, this is point-in-time data. And so as the books come to a final close, during adoption, we could see these numbers shift slightly. But you can see there the tentative budget in 26-27 at $54.5 million and change from budget to budget at 1.6. And so we are slightly higher. And then the next slide. Okay, federal through state. So let's break down what that looks like. And you can see here on the left side, we have the federal through state, all of the various revenue streams that we receive. And so you have your school lunch reimbursement there, and in the middle you see what the tentative budget is for 26-27. That stands at $33.9 million rounding up, and on down the line for school breakfast reimbursement, after-school snack reimbursement, child care food program, donated commodities, cash in lieu of donations, the summer feeding program, nutritional education training, and miscellaneous through state. So all told here, $51.9 million in the tentative budget, with perhaps some small shifts as we continue down our path towards budget adoption in September. The next breaks down just some smaller pieces there related to state funds, and you can see there are some supplemental dollars that we receive for school breakfast and school lunch. So certainly appreciate all of the support that we get from the federal government and obviously through the state. Let's talk about local revenue. So as you can see here on the left side of the schedule, you have various funding streams all told together. For the tentative budget 26-27, we sit at $2,083,851. This is a change of up to about $30,000 more than the previous budget. And I have some extra additional notes here.
Mr. Welsh, I'd like to just to comment for the community that might be listening, just a reminder that Marion County Public Schools participates in the Community Eligibility Provision Program. So that means all of our students eat breakfast and lunch for free, regardless of income. Go ahead, Mr. Welsh.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that, Dr. Brewer. And that kind of categorical eligibility, it's like a blanket eligibility for the entire district, is a really big deal, because we know that if students are hungry, it's going to be very difficult for them to learn. And so our food service folks do a great job of managing that. A couple of other things to just point out here is that if you see there at the top of this particular schedule, we have interest on investments. This operates similarly to other funds that we have where we're able to temporarily invest funds, and so that operates similar in terms of earning interest, and that's that code there, 3431, and then 3456, the other funds. We have a variance there. This is related to the Pace Center for Girls closure, and so you see that adjustment there explaining the variance. And then we have 3493, which is just the sale of junk or other miscellaneous equipment items. It's kind of hard to project exactly what this will be. It's kind of unknown as things come offline or have come to the end of their useful life and need to be cannibalized and taken out of our facilities. And we do get a little bit of revenue back once those go to auction, as the board is aware. Okay. Let's see. Other finance sources, we have a small amount here. It's a transfer from the general fund. This is $20,000, so not a lot of fanfare there. And then we're going to get into the expense side of the equation here. So we're looking at expenditures, and as indicated earlier, the bulk of the money is spent not only on food, but on salary and benefits for our food service workers, which I attended their kickoff with Dr. Brewer. I can tell you it was extremely energetic to walk into the room over at Westport and see all those folks there, Forest High School, and see all of the food service workers in one place at one time. Wow. Lot of energy, and you can tell those folks are really committed and dedicated to the work they do. But you can see here that we have a tentative budget of $21 million, and this is a change from budget to budget of about $1 million more. As you guys know, this includes things, as you can see on the left side of of the schedule, things like terminal pay, school administration, and other personnel support. And so we will continue to monitor that and make sure that we have the resources available. And the next major object class, purchase services. And we can see here that for the tentative budget 26-27, we are looking at about $880,000, which is actually $34,000 less than last year. And we may have some changes as bills continue to come in. And so during our adopted budget process, you may see these numbers shift slightly. And the next object class for energy services, you can see here that in 25-26, we budgeted $758,000. Our actuals right now are coming in a little less than $700,000, so our tentative budget is up slightly by $133,000 at $891,000, primarily due, there you can see driving the increase is the electricity bill. We expect as we bring on more schools, for example, South Marion, then we see a tantamount amount of increase in our electricity bill because we have added quite a bit of square footage to our footprint. Materials and supplies. For this year's 26-27 budget, we're sitting at $26.5 million, rounding up, and you see the bulk of that in the Code 5700, which is food. And so that, I think, highlights the point that, the vast majority of these dollars are going to purchase the one thing that we need to be buying, which is lots of food. And of course, throughout the course of the year, we come to the board with various changes and procurements that make sure that we are getting the best price, competitive prices for food, and we are always looking to make sure that we get the best value for the dollar. Okay. Capital outlay. One second here. Make sure I don't have anything else I want to mention. Okay, capital outlay. This is the 6000s object code, and you can see that we have a tentative budget of $8,058,000, and this is $1,313,000 less than last year's budget. And you can see the reductions there in vehicle other than buses coming down a little bit and remodeling coming down slightly. I will touch on some of the carryover projects that we have in just a moment, but also want to mention that Code 6400, just for example purposes, includes things like milk boxes, coolers, tables, outdoor seating, sinks, and all types of equipment that may be unrepairable and we have to replace it. The 6800 area includes things like generators, which has come up a bit, freezer coolers, which we're bringing a few of those online soon, and new serving lines, which if you've been over to South Marion High School, we have a beautiful new serving line that is very colorful, looks very modern, and so we are glad to certainly see that. Okay, next slide here, 37. This is other expenditures and transfers, and you see a dollar figure there at 58.2. That's the total roll-up, and you see just that specific piece that's being transferred there in that object code at $922,000. It's down $2.2 million, budget to budget. Excuse me, $207,000. The total is down 2.2. Okay. Let's talk about the fund balance for food service. And again, thanks to the staff, they've been working very hard and diligently to make sure that we have a fund balance. And then secondly, that the fund balance is used to support various projects to really help food service operate in a high-capacity and efficient way. So you can see here the ending fund balance over time. Again, it is restricted. It does ebb and flow. And so you can see in the school year 21-22, it set at about $9.8 million and gradually grew. It looks like at a height there of 24-25 to 22.3. And we've been spending that down, and you see it now coming down to 15.8 projected for this year's budget. And so that is certainly a good thing. But as I said last week in my previous comments about the general fund or any fund, it's always good to have a fund balance. We have to have it. It's legally required. We need to have a rainy day fund. But we also need to make sure that we balance the needs in the community such that we do not look like we are hoarding money or taxing the public and not using the money. So we have to be very transparent about what we're doing, why we're doing it. And in a lot of cases, projects just can't be done in 1 year. It takes time to acquire equipment, to get procurements done. There are other considerations in terms of supply chain management and things that come up throughout the year that require that some projects get rolled over. And in this particular case, I have a list of projects that the board members have seen and have certainly will be hearing more about, that we will be using fund balance in order to gradually bring that down. So things like freezer and cooler combos for the district, backup generators, water softeners for the school. We have other items, new serving lines, and additional dining seating in elementary schools that we are certainly allocating. And then, of course, some of the more big ticket items, we look at things like our generators so that we can ensure that we do not lose any product that we have if there is a hurricane or something active nature occurs, that we can make sure that we do not lose and have to repurchase those items. So that is extremely important. With that, I will pause for any questions.
Nancy Thur, Board Member Thur.
Yes, good morning, and thank you, as always, for the comprehensive overviews that you provide. There's a lot of conversation in the community these days and in households about the high cost of food and trying to reduce food waste. And I'm just wondering about current regulations that may be in place that make it challenging for us to reduce food waste, or what we are doing as a school system to educate students about not wasting food. And because I remember that at least there was a time where the cafeteria line workers were basically forced to put certain food on the trays, and then if the kids didn't want it, well, guess where it ended up? So I would love an update on that.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
It doesn't have to be today, but
I can comment. They are required to put certain food groups on each tray, but schools stopped during COVID having that share container, remember, share table. But now those are back in operation. And so in that, we see it all the time. Students will just give their food to their peers. And so that's the hope, is that they're not throwing away food that isn't touched at all.
thank you for providing that update, because I almost was thinking that it was more of a school-based decision whether those were there or not, and where they're placed makes a difference as well. If the trash can is closer, guess where the food's going to go?
Right.
And in the spirit of just, being conservative about how we're spending our money and not being wasteful, maybe there's opportunity there, because it is such a big budget item for us, and it's a pretty good lesson in becoming an adult, to focus on just saving where you can and not being wasteful. So,
But we will follow up with the schools just to make sure that they realize that they are able to do that now, and to encourage it if it's not happening.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Yep. And just a point for clarification, and we will certainly follow up on your question there. And I certainly don't like to leave any food on my plate, but this is an education opportunity always for our students that they, need to choose wisely. And often here, when at least I've had a chance to visit schools or talk to Ms. Belcher and the food service staff, that sometimes students can get a little picky and have some very interesting taste buds. And we always like to encourage them, if we give you a banana and an orange and a snack, all these things considered certainly should help so that no student ever feels hungry, right? It's just a function of whether or not they are making those choices to eat that particular item, and we go out of our way painstakingly to ensure that those options are healthy. I just want to point of clarification, my previous comment related to the cost to educate certainly does not include debt service or capital or the internal service fund. So I just want to make sure we put that out there, but if the board is interested in the computation for that, we can provide the report backup source data that we give to DOE. Okay. With that, speaking of DOE, we'll jump into the special revenue fund. Okay. So big shout out to Dr. Coleman, now Dr. Mace and her teams in federal grants and programs, and also Dr. Anna Williams-Jones, our ESC director. A lot of moving parts here, very complicated area. So I'm going to try to walk through this as gingerly as I can. So we see here total revenue excluding fund balance at approximately $51 million. And you can see there the federal share at 46.3 or 91%, with local and state rounding this out at 8.5 and about 0.5% there, a little larger for the state portion. And on the expenditure side, you see the equivalent amount, excluding fund balance, at $50.1 million. And you can see the salaries and benefits, as indicated in my earlier comments, help to support the district's staffing, as many of our staff are cost allocated across various revenue streams, depending on the position, workload, location, allowability, and so forth. And so all told, that's $31.6 million or 62%, rounding us out with purchase services at almost 5%, energy at almost 0.25%, materials and supplies at 20%, and capital outlay and other at 4.62% and 8% respectively. Let's look at the historical grants on slide 42. So this is an important graph because what we want to make sure we're communicating is that over time, you have seen an ebb and flow in federal support and other grants, and of course, a lot of this is controlled in DEC in terms of entitlement dollars and dollars that were approved by the Congress years ago, and ebbs and flows seemingly with changes in federal administrations and priorities. But you can see there from 2013 to 2014, the amount at $29.5 million. And then you can see that gradually growing with some ebbing and flowing on the right side of the slide, which you can see at the height of 23-24, which would include a lot of those temporary dollars that we received at $123 million. You can see that federal support and historical grant trend is on the decline. We are not seeing it going the other direction. So this is something that we have to watch extremely carefully because if for some reason the federal government decides to pull back, claw back, whatever financial jujitsu they use to reduce the amount of funds that are available to public schools for all the various grants, which I'll go through, that would cause a lot of pressure on the district. And so we certainly cannot afford right now to absorb $50 million in federal support. We do rely on that partnership And I want to thank the board members, members of our congressional delegation, our state U.S. senators, governor, all the folks that help to make sure that that spigot stays on. Of course, I would also ask that the more money that we can get and support from the federal government, the better off that we're going to be in terms of having resources to help educate our students. The next slide, 43, has a breakdown of various grants. And this year we included in your packet a list of all of those grants with definitions. So you have those for your reference. But you can see here that Fund 4200, look there, you see quite a few different grants, all of them very important, but all told, bringing in $46.6 million. And then we have our miscellaneous, or the 4900 code there, where we have other dollars that we are receiving and using for various initiatives that include things like the SHINE initiative, which is targeted towards our employee mental health, or the Project Lead the Way, which provides technical grants to high schools to support classes and instruction there, or resiliency building for mental health that is funded by the Public Ed Foundation. And then lastly, just wanted to mention the school internal accounts there at $4 million, which comes up often, as those are dollars that schools rely on in terms of managing the day-to-day when students are providing fees and the like to schools to participate in various activities. All revenue summary on page 44. So here, just walking through the schedule, again, you see the federal pass-through, state, and local. So for 25-26, it was $62.4 million. Right now, we're looking at about 50.8. There again, there may be some changes here once we get to the adopted budget next month. But the tentative budget now shows that $51 million, which is an $11.4 million reduction from the prior year. And this is for various reasons. And you can see there that that's mostly federal funds. And so we have to continue to monitor this, because that is certainly not a trend that we would like to see continue, but we have to work within the resources that we have, and we will continue to do that. More detail here on slide 45. And you can see there at the top, we have code 3199, or miscellaneous federal direct, and that is budgeted at $1.5 million. And then we have all of the other federal through state or pass-through funds there in the middle column, 26-27 tentative, at a total of $44.8 million. And you can see from budget to budget a reduction of almost $10.5 million, which is driven by code 3225, 3230, which is the teacher principal training and recruiting, education for the handicapped. And then you see there Title IV, 21st century grant there with a reduction and elementary secondary educational act at 3240, driving that reduction combined with the other smaller amounts. So again, this is an area that we have to continue to monitor. Which leads me to the next slide, 46. So this is other revenue state, and you can see there the codes on the left side of the schedule. And you see there for the tentative budget for other miscellaneous revenue through state at $269,000. This is $543,000 less than last year. And then at the local level, you can see there that gifts, grants, bequests, and other miscellaneous sources there coming in at $4.3 million. And all told, in summary, you see that this is $11.4 million less than last year. So we are required to do more with less. Again, some of this could change depending on if we have a grant that is going to be extended. Typically, for special revenue, we do see changes between tentative and adopted. So I do expect that some of these numbers will move to the good slightly, but I cannot tell you exactly what those numbers are because we are still in the process of working through that. Let's talk about the expense side of the house. This is slide 47. So you can see here that for the tentative budget, for the special revenue fund, we sit at $10.1 million. I'm sorry, I'm back up. Total salary and benefits at 31.6. The employee benefits portion is just the 10.1 million. And you can see there that change of $9.5 million from budget to budget. And this, if you look at that breakdown, you're talking 37% total, plus benefits going towards just teachers, classroom teachers, 1,200 code and 1,300 for other certified instruction. And then when you add all of that up for classroom teachers, paraprofessionals, and other support services from codes 1,100 down to 1,600, that's about 85% of all of this money for salaries and benefits is going either directly to support classroom instruction and teachers or support staff. And I think that is an important point, because as we get money from the federal government or other sources for special revenue, it's not like we're just, spending that money willy-nilly. We actually use that money to buttress the staff that we have throughout the district, many of which are highly specialized in terms of ESE, speech language therapy, and all of the things that we have to support that we can't necessarily do because of limited general funds. Next slide. 48. So purchase services. You can see here that in 25-26, our budget was $5.1 million. And now we have a tentative budget here of 2.5. We have a reduction of $2.6 million. And so again, doing more with less, but we do expect that there are some variances as grant allocations were reduced for this past year. And so we have to continue to monitor that. And this is a result of that. Energy, let's get into energy here. All right. So the 4,000s object code, so you see gas and diesel there, 4,500 and 4,600. Last year we were at $111,000, and this year for the tentative budget, we're seeing a slight uptick there. I don't think there's any surprise, as diesel fuel per gallon has continued to increase given the issues over in the Middle East. You can see here materials and supplies on slide 50. And again, we're spending quite a bit, but if you look at last year, we had $6.8 million budgeted. Right now, we are budgeting $10.2 million, and this is up $3.4 million from last year. And I have some notes that I'd like to kind of walk through here. Okay. Yep, increases in consumables driven by Title I allocations for consumables. And so this is driving that particular increase. And we're going to get into capital outlay. This is slide 51 for reference. So here for the tentative budget 26-27, we stand at $2.352 million. You can see the bulk of that is budgeted in Code 6400 for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And that is actually down from last year. So as revenue allocations are adjusted, our expenses adjust accordingly. And so you see a lot of changes there from year to year, because this is a constant shifting depending on what those revenues look like. And so you see our capital outlay budget have a reduction there. And let's talk about other expenses and transfers. This is slide 52. And you can see here that this year we're budgeting $4,074,000. And this is down $505,000. And you can see the in and out there from change from budget to budget. So when you net that out, that's 505. You can see there that the dues and fees making up the lion's share of what's driving it down, with other personal services as well, with some miscellaneous expenses increasing. Okay, I'll pause there for any questions as we've finished the special revenue portion of the presentation. Okay, we're going to move on to the last section, and this is the Internal Service Fund, which we've had a lot of discussion as of late, as the board is aware. So let's look at it. Total revenue, including fund balance, at $100.7 million, $70.8 million, or 70% coming from local sources. And we have a beginning fund balance at $29.9 million, or close to 30%. And total expenditures at an equivalent, again, including fund balance, $55 million there, or 54%, and other, which would include the two big pieces, obviously, which is going to be our property risk management side of the house for property casualty workers' comp. But of course, the bulk of that is going to be our health insurance fund to cover claims. And at the bottom there, you'll see it rounded out at almost 10% for purchase services, salary and benefits for those staff that are allocated to this particular fund. And then, of course, the ending fund balance at $35.6 million, or almost 35.4%. So how does that shake out? Well, for the Internal Service Fund, we have two sides of the house, which I'm glad to report that, at least since my tenure, although we've had some turnover, I do feel like our risk management department has made quite the 180, and I'm very happy that we are continuing to do the good work with the installation of a new benefits coordinator and a new coordinator on the risk management side. So I just wanted to give them a shout out. So with that being said, let's talk about the property and casualty workers' comp side. This stands at $8,073,000, including fund balance. You see there on the pie chart on the left, local sources make up 67%, or $5.4 million, with a 2.6 or 33% beginning fund balance. And on the right side, you see the expenditures equivalent, including fund balance, at 48%, or $3.9 million. And you see there a small amount of salaries at 2.67%, ending fund balance at 12%, or $986,000. And then, of course, the $3 million, or 37%, is the dollars that we budget for our claims that the board often will deal with in shade for various issues that arise throughout the district related to liability for vehicles, facilities, and the like. Slide 56, and looking at the Internal Service Fund expenditures, you can see there timeline going back to 2020 to 2021. We really didn't want to go back too far. We like to keep the most recent data available. So you see there the beginning fund balance for 25-26 at the very bottom there at 4.6 million, with revenues at 4.623, and operational expenses at 6.469. And then we have expense due to change in estimated liability and estimated claims liability, which right now, until we get final actuarial numbers, remains an estimate. And then we have an ending fund balance for 25-26 at $2.6 million. And again, in this particular case, we have to make sure that this side of the house has a fund balance so that we can cover claims, just like we do for the health insurance side, which I'm going to get into now on the next slide. Okay. So this is the other side of the house. This is the lion's share on the risk management side, nonetheless important. But you see there $92.6 million in total revenue, including fund balance at 70% or 65.4, and then rounded out by $27.3 million or almost 30% in beginning fund balance. And then you see the total expenditures there, equivalent at $92.6 million, with the $52 million or 56% that is budgeted to cover most of our claims through our self-insured fund, and that is rounded out by 6% or $5.8 million for purchase of services, salary and benefits at almost $200,000, and ending fund balance at 34.6 or 37%. We have limited staff that is actually tied to these funds. I'll get into that in a moment, as some of them are allocated in certain ways, depending on their job function. And slide 58 goes into a similar table that I just talked about for property and casualty, but you see here again on the left side of the schedule, fiscal year 2021 through 25-26, and you can see there the beginning fund balance at 29.6 million, revenues at 64.6, operational expenses at 66.7, and then you have the expense due to change in estimated liability and estimated claims liability, and that definition, as previously stated, tracks here as well. And the beginning fund balance at the bottom there at $27.3 million. Now, I do want to take the liberty just to address some concerns. I know we've had some communications, written, folks coming to our meeting, particularly related to the self-insurance fund and recent changes that the board approved. I just want to make sure that the public understands that this particular fund has been growing. And that is something that is to be expected given the cost of healthcare. However, it is not growing at the rate that it would have grown had we not converted to a self-insured fund years ago. And so that is a point that we can't overemphasize. But I will say that as we implement changes going into this next year that the board recently approved, it does not, sit lightly with me, or I don't take it lightly that it has a real impact on employees. And we will continue to monitor that to make sure that a few things are happening. One is that employees are getting the best quality care at the most affordable price. And so I've asked our benefits coordinator, under the direction of Dr. Brewer, to look at a navigator type model and make sure that folks know how to move through the system so that they can utilize all of the resources that they have available to them, so that they are not overburdened with paying more than they have to, but they need to know what their options are. And so that is a very involved conversation, but I will end it with this, that it is extremely important that we maintain the 2-month safe harbor to cover any claims that come in. And so this 1-year maneuver that we did to take from fund balance in the health insurance fund to otherwise cover an increase that we would have come before the board to ask for is just that. It is one time. So that means that we will not be coming back, or I don't anticipate coming back to the well to tap into that, because we have a floor limitation that we must maintain. And so it becomes critically important that the execution of these new plan design changes, whether they're related to deductibles, employee contributions, we need to make sure that we monitor that and that we see it all the way through. And if we notice that it's not getting the amount of savings that we thought, or there are administrative wrinkles or things that we need to be doing to improve the customer experience, that we keep that ball in front of us. So with that, I will pause for any questions. Thank you.
Board, any questions? Board Member Thrower.
Just a quick one. I'm wondering when the first meeting of the insurance committee is going to be held.
Yep, thank you. We are in the process of scheduling that. I have reached out to our clerk, and we're going to get something scheduled regularly. I think my hope is that we can meet either quarterly, right now, just to see how things are going and to touch base. But we certainly need to be meeting more often and early to make sure that the insurance committee is involved in everything that we're doing.
Thank you.
I'll share that date as soon as it's available.
Okay. I don't see any other questions.
I just want to thank Mr. Welsh. Of course, we've already acknowledged Ms. Crowder and Ms. Markham. I appreciate the way you shared the numbers, but also gave the narrative and the context around the numbers and how it all fits together for our $1.234 billion budget.
Yeah, thank you. And I do have some, just some brief closing remarks. Let me see if I can pull it up. But I do want to just kind of start off by saying one thing, which is that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And what I mean by that is it's no Franklin Covey statement from, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in our particular case, it's really, really important for the public to understand that. Obviously, I think the board does, and certainly the staff. But we are tasked with looking at the entire district, the whole county, all the students, not one particular group of students or one particular neighborhood, but all of the neighborhoods. And that's something that we can't lose sight of. And so when I say the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, we have to take that view and zoom out. And so when we talk about the future-focused operations plan, the capital plan, all of the plans that I enumerated in my opening statement, those items are going to put us on a pathway towards greater solvency and financial stability for years to come. Decisions that were made in the past related to the capital budget, or the fact that we had foregone dollars that we could have otherwise have gotten for whatever reasons. I am not here to make a judgment call on past board decisions, but I think it goes without saying that the board has the fiduciary responsibility and make decisions at the time, the best decisions at the time with the data that they have within the environment that is going on at that time. And so now that we are in a different time, in a different environment with different growth and different challenges and opportunities, we have to continue to zoom out. And I think that's really important for the public to understand. I know it's difficult to maybe look at things in a vacuum. Why can't we use these dollars to provide salary increases? That's complicated, and we've tried to do our best to explain that. But I can assure you that we are doing everything that we can to make the critical investments to lay, I believe, the groundwork for the next 10 to 20 years, and to hopefully get in front and be proactive and not just reactive about the growth that we're seeing in the county in terms of housing builds and the number of people that are moving to the county and leaving other parts of the country or the state to come to Marion County. And so we have to lean into our assets, be asset-based, And hopefully, as wealth continues to grow in the county, we can have the resources and financing available in order to meet the need. And so I will close my remarks with that. I want to thank the staff, Dr. Brewer, Mr. Whitehouse, the board, Chair James, the public, for their support throughout the years in terms of providing affirmative votes for millages and capital improvements and referendum. And so we're going to continue to lean into that and to work hard through this next year to make sure that our fund balance remains high and that we have the resources to weather any storm that comes through Marion County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rios-Welsh. I wanted to note, too, in my side notes of kind of tallying up all of the stuff that we can't use for other stuff. The 80-ish million for family empowerment and charter schools, the 279 million for capital expenses, 58 million for food service, and 100 for our insurance. That totals $517 million. And so essentially, of a $1.2 billion budget, more than 500 million of that is untouchable. It comes and it goes very quickly. It's completely for food, completely for capital expenses, completely passed off the top to charters and family empowerment scholarships, and then there for insurance and benefits for our self-insurance. And so when we're looking at the budget, we're looking more at like $700 million of money we have to work with. And of course, you know, the general fund is
closer to
500-ish, right?
I think I noted that earlier.
Yeah,
I think it
and
breaks
so
down 46 and 54%.
We're not playing with $1.2 billion when it really gets into the nitty-gritty. And so for me, as a board member, that will continue to be the messaging that I share when asked about the budget and the value that the 1 mil has that allows us to be able to pay for teachers and ensure that we have really great resources on our campus, because that is also a restricted budget, incredibly restricted.
Yep.
And so I just wanted to paint that picture.
Absolutely, and I think you
Board Member
hit the
Thor.
nail on the head. Thank you.
Yes, I'd love to piggyback on that because we have been tracking exactly the same throughout this whole conversation. We have so many dollars that are already encumbered, and our challenge is how do we explain this to the community? And it doesn't seem like in school finance that there's ever a simple calculation to be able to say something like, with the total advertised budget minus total pass-through that includes all funds equals, you know, and a subtraction problem that almost anyone could wrap their head around. That would go such a long way to simply being able to amplify to the community what that equation is. It may help continue to expand the tremendous support that we have received. And I think that's also something worth sharing. I think the last referendum passed at 70%-ish. And the sales tax for 10 years, that's a 10-year commitment from taxpayers, was a pretty good number too. It wasn't that high. I think it was more like 5 to 7%, something like that. So it's not like we don't have tremendous community support, but when there's a lot of focus on trying to carry a negative portrayal of public education from top to bottom, we need a counter that is easily understood. So I really appreciate how straightforward all of the presentations were, how you're clearly working together as a team and including everyone, you know, at the podium. I hate to say the hot seat. I hope it's.
We don't want
I don't want people to feel like that when they come up before us.
I got some water. The dais up here.
Just please know how appreciated you all are.
Thank you.
I wanted to say that you used this cup scenario a couple work sessions back. We were filling up cups, or someone did, right?
Mr. Blackman, I think that
Okay,
was his
okay.
shtick.
Oh, right, that was in a
Loved
shade
it.
session. There was a cups, and so when I think about this and I was peeling off these things, I think if we had one big cup and we just took it and partitioned and we left at the top what we actually have to spend, it would be a great visual to basically out just a little over 50% of this big budget is money that we can spend on teacher pay. And so it would be helpful, I think, to your point, there just needs to be some kind of visual that we can very easily, and I know we have names, but our names mean nothing to regular people who don't deal with school finance every day, because they really, for those of us who've been in it, it takes us years to even understand what all of these words mean. And so the things I wrote down were family empowerment and charter schools, because that's what makes sense to people, not whatever that line item is actually called, special revenue this or the, you know. And so, like what we just discussed, call it insurance, because that's what it is. And so if there's a way to create some kind of visual so that in layman's terms, the average person can look at it and go, oh, that to the email that we were on just the other day, that's why there's no money for teacher raises, because it's $1.2 billion, but it's not really.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Dr. James. And again, to emphasize that point, you know, that $667.1 million is really that cup, right, that remains for general operating, and the other dollars are restricted. Nonetheless, they do go towards supporting all of our ability to educate, right? You got to keep the lights on, you got to pay for schools, brick and mortar, insurance, food. All of these things have to be considered, not unlike your household budget, but again, not quite a fair comparison. But I do want to also just address one thing from Board Member Thrower. When we talk about value, and I think the cost report, once we get that done, we'll share that with the board, really helps to highlight what that value is. So if you look at our total budget and you look at the fact that whether it's $10,850 for the general fund and then $12,500, including some of the other pieces, and bump that up against maybe what it would cost at a private school to provide food, transportation, high-quality education, medical services for those that could not receive that otherwise. My view is that the value for Marion County Public Schools to the public is much greater than I think people realize. So if you look at your property tax bill, when you get it, and you will get it, and hopefully most folks will see an appreciation in their value for their individual home, I think that you could walk away and look at that bill and say, whether you have children in the public school system or not, you are getting a huge value for the money. We have some of the highest and best educated teachers in Central Florida. Of course, we're in competition with other counties. And so we have to balance all of that. But the value is certainly there, and that's why we're seeing so many students who are homeschooled or who were getting vouchers coming back to the district. They're saying, hey, we want to pay a fee to participate for various reasons. And so we hope that that trend continues, and that when parents look at educational options, that they give us a first look, not a second look. Let me think what else I wanted to mention. Your tax bill. I do want to make this point because I wanted to include it in the presentation this year, but I think we're going to work on an educational video. But when folks get their tax bill, they're going to see basically 4 parts, okay? Marion County Public Schools is going to make up about a quarter of whatever your tax bill total increase is going to be. So if you live in Ocala and you live in Marion County and you use public watershed management, and obviously we have a school system in the district, you'll see 4 pieces. So I don't want folks to show up in September saying, why did all the taxes go up? And they don't realize that our portion is just basically 1/4 of that. It is not the total tax bill. You have to pay for City of Ocala, fire, police, county administration, and watershed management. And then lastly, and I think most importantly, is education. Folks move to counties, and they choose where they live primarily because the schools are good. And if we are a high C, teetering on the edge of B, 1 point, and increasing and moving in the right direction, I expect that trend would continue, and that wealth will continue to grow as more people come here and they build more housing. It's affordable, and we have good schools. So I will close my comments with, we have a balanced budget, and we have a plan forward. Now, we have to execute that plan. Will things change? Yes. Is change hard? Yes.
That's
It's
going to be
hard.
your legacy, Mr. Whitehouse.
Okay? Trying to emphasize some points here. So thank you for your leadership and support, and that will conclude the presentation on my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Ms.
Finance.
Mr. Rios, Madam Chair, listen, thank you again. Excellent job, excellent presentation. This was a little bit long. The last one was long. So I have one suggestion, just one suggestion. I think that'll make next year's presentation better. That you bring a stool and put there at the podium, because it was very long. But I think you were able to articulate this in such a way, and I think the board wanted that it was articulated not on such a high level that the community couldn't understand it, but that we brought it down so they can understand some of the things. Because oftentimes there's a lot of misconceptions about the budget, and I think you cleared up a lot of them. So thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. And if there are any other questions, we do have another placeholder meeting, I believe, for the 20th. So I would defer to the board on whether or not that is necessary. And we have several work sessions where we'll be delving into a lot of these topics in very grave detail. And so I look forward to that. But yes, I will get a stool. Thank you.
Board, do you feel the necessity to keep the 20th? Is there other things that the team needs to discuss, or do you feel comfortable with where you are?
I feel comfortable with where we are now. I think we have some work session topics that are going to address most of the issues that the board has already really leaned into and has been asking lots of questions, of course.
Okay, we can certainly keep the item on there, and if, just so we don't remove it, and if something were to come up, then we have the item to discuss it. I think that's probably the safest approach, and then if there's nothing to discuss, we can move on, just to make sure.
Absolutely, at the board's pleasure.
Did Dr. Campbell have anything? I haven't heard. I don't know if she's still on or not.
I'm still here. I don't have anything. I'm good.
Great, good to hear. Okay,
Phone was right on the phone.
so I think that's going to conclude this item. Is there any public, oh, sorry,
I was trying to jump in, sorry, everybody had a turn. Mr. Rios-Wells, thank you so much for the presentation this morning, for you and your team. It is so complicated. Public school finance is complicated. And so I just wanted to share, several board members had the same thought, but a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so I really would like us, as we finalize the budget at the beginning of September, I'd like to see us get to a place where we have a one-pager that we can share, particularly for board members. When we're out in the community, people just want a high-level view. You have this much money, what can you do with it? And so I like the analogy you all use with the buckets. And so, we have 5 buckets, and we label those buckets, and we have the opportunity to say, well, what can we use this bucket for, But I'd like to see us move in that direction as we come to the conclusion of this process, just because every space we step into, people have questions about the budget, and it's very complicated, and it's hard for us to answer as we're passing at a United Way meeting or a CEP. It's not something you can but you can say, hey, I do have something I can send you that will be helpful. And so I'm just looking forward to the possibility of having that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So we are going to ask for public comment at this point. Hearing none, we are going to take a 9-minute recess and come back at 11 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.
right, we're coming back from recess at 11:01, and we're going to move into item 5.1, which is our legislative agenda. Dr. Brewer, do you want to give us like a bit of a recap and where we're headed and how to stay focused this morning?
Yes, thank you. And I just want to make sure, is Dr. Campbell on?
She's on.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Campbell I'll just say a couple things, and Dr. Campbell can take it from there. But I know in last year, we worked really hard, and we had a lot of discussion about the transportation allocation as a priority. I know that didn't go where we wanted it to, but that would be my recommendation, that we begin that conversation again. I know, again, I'll let Dr. Campbell expand on that. The other topic is, as we continue to prioritize early learning, if we want to discuss using that as a priority. But those are the two main areas that I knew that we wanted to discuss this morning, or at least begin thinking in that direction.
All right.
I agree.
So, Dr. Campbell, do you want to take the lead?
I will do my best. Hopefully my phone won't cut out in the process. I was already wanting to say, potentially we just kind of go high level with our thoughts today and get a little tighter as we progress. I agree with having a priority in the transportation bucket. I also agree with a priority in the early learning bucket. I'm also curious if we want to continue the gifted conversation. And I also think it would be helpful for us to focus on middle school career exploration, especially in light of our new Commissioner of Education's focus in careers and career readiness. So some of the things that I have in my mind right now, I'm not certain if they are DOE rules or statute changes that we need. And so I'm just curious if anybody else has thoughts in any of those four areas or something else that's not in those four areas that we can high level talk about today.
I have something.
Okay, board member Thur. And let's just have open discourse, so.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning, Board Member Campbell. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Where does attendance fall in this priority conversation?
At the top, I left out attendance. I'm thinking about four kind of additional things that we haven't focused on every single time, because and attendance really does need to be the number one priority. But the other four that we continue to talk about, do we need to change the direction that we want to go? I believe that attendance, that still needs to be our top priority. We've nailed down exactly what we want done. We just have to get that across the finish line, specifically in the Senate.
Thank you.
So I agree with that.
Well, I agree. That depends on the rest of the board. I love the other priorities, and all of them will be great if the kids come to school regularly and on time to avail themselves of these opportunities.
Okay, so are we all in agreement that we're going to maintain attendance as our top priority?
Agreed.
And I think, are we going to continue to just push forward with that language change that essentially makes the calendar clock not be so convoluted? We want a rolling 90 days so that if they miss 10 days, if they miss 9 days in May, then they miss the 10th day in August, they can start truancy.
Right.
And there's no hard reset.
Right.
And so we can hash out that specific language. I think we've already done that, but that will be our focus then for our top priority.
Great.
Okay? All right, so then moving forward from that,
Bus was the transportation.
transportation allocation, and so asking for a unique additional allocation based on land mass and the size. And so we can maybe do a little bit of research and have some options when we have this conversation again about how we want to approach that ask. But a second, and I guess let's just say the top priority is attendance. All of the rest we're not ranking right now. I'm just saying second because we're listing them. Transportation allocation and an additional allocation based on our land mass size. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so then,
Yes, and if we can also, sorry, I am having a little bit of tough time hearing you, Dr. James, but the transportation piece, I think we could focus on this year would be land mass in conjunction with the number of schools we have. So last year we talked about land mass in 6 counties that were all 1,600 or 1,300 square miles. But the uniqueness of each one of them is they have way more schools in that land mass, specifically Miami-Dade, even Polk. They all have a lot more schools in that land mass, so they're not necessarily traveling the distances that we are traveling. So I think that's how we need to nuance this time. It might actually be a ratio based on the number of schools and the number of miles traveled.
okay, we got it. So then we want to focus on early learning.
Oh, yes.
So we want to focus on early learning specifically. Do we want to talk about funding a fuller day than the 3-hour day, which seems to,
Yes.
I mean, I know we all want that. It seems to go to die in the legislature every time it's brought up.
Because I don't think there's always a complete understanding, and so I think we just keep sharing our message.
I think they can't afford it. I think the legislator can't afford to fund to even an extra hour. But I think the approach should be adding an extra hour. Because like if they funded a full day, they'd essentially be funding pre-K through grade 12. And the legislator, I think that's
But
what.
I think this is the right time for us to continue that, especially with the pressure from the Florida Chamber, with the 2030 pipe, their initiative with every kindergartner would be ready by 2030.
Well, and my approach would be that we don't ask for a full day, we ask for another hour. Because every hour we get additionally funded is going to help cover the gap on the back funds that we have to funnel in from title and other grant money. So I wouldn't, I mean, unless you want to shoot for the stars and hope they settle somewhere, I would say, let's go in and just, because every year somebody asks for a full day BPK and it fails every time. So why don't we just ask for an hour instead of 540, it becomes whatever the 540 is for, whatever that would become for a 4-hour day.
And Dr. James, respectfully, I understand why you're saying that, but I think if we say an hour, there's nowhere to go below that.
Sure.
I think we need to at least ask for 2 or 3 hours, and so that way they got some room that they can we can get the hour, you know?
Sure.
So take out the nap, and so whatever the difference of time would be.
Well, a 6-hour day, because essentially a 7-hour day includes the
Right.
nap,
Okay.
right? Board Member Thor?
So the goal is to be kindergarten ready by 2030?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, then we should at least be asking for the hours to increase if we're going to go, if we're going to go the hourly route.
The
So that
initiative.
they can phase it in and maybe not, get hit all at once. But again, in my mind, I think in all of our minds, it's a penny wise, pound foolish kind of deal. If kids start school not ready,
Yeah.
how much is the state spending on remediation funds and recovery and technology, It's a no-brainer, it's just in how it's worded.
If we ask for a 6-hour day instead of a 3-hour day, that still leaves an hour for nap time that would be unfunded, which is the big hiccup. They don't want to pay for nap time. And so if we say we want to fund a 6-hour day, which in our traditional school day, looking at start times, 8 to, I'm just thinking of like Madison Street, 8 to 2:30, a 6-hour day would be 8 to 2, and so then that leaves 30 minutes for nap time. And so schools would have to get a little bit more, specific about how they do it. But I would love to fund nap time because it's developmentally appropriate, but that's what the legislator says they don't want to fund.
And I agree with you that that's been an historical response, but I think the last couple of times we've been up with the legislators, some of the legislators have said, well, we haven't heard that angle. And the fact of the matter is, to empower parents to be able to work and be able to feel like their child is being taken care of and not have the complications of within their workday of trying to somehow get transportation and, all the things that we've talked about. That is truly empowering parents. Not only is it developmentally appropriate, but it empowers parents to be able to essentially be the parents that they want and need to be. We know that we have great arguments.
And I think the other piece of that, it increases worker productivity because that parent doesn't now have to leave their job or figure out how they're going to go pick up these kids in the daytime. So I think that's another piece of the argument that we have to put in there, that the productivity for businesses is going to increase.
Okay, so circling around, we'll have a greater conversation, but circling around early learning with an increase in funded hours. Dr. Campbell?
Sure. So I completely appreciate the conversation, and I think we're headed exactly in the right direction. If we can work on between now and the next time we talk, the specific language, because I think if legislator exactly the way we want it written, and that becomes our priority, saying by, even give them a little more time than 2030, by 2032 or by 2033, the state will fund full day BBK, starting with 1 hour in the 27-28 year and move it on from there. That way they can do the whole cost analysis to know how much this really is going to cost them.
Incremental.
Yeah, incremental. And so let's mull it over and come up with some options so that we'll have a productive discourse the next time we talk about it. Does that work?
Yes.
Anything else?
Well,
on this?
just musing, you know, if the whole NAP thing comes up during our legislative delegation meetings, isn't it true that your brain, like, it's not like you pull the plug out of the wall when you fall asleep? Isn't that when the brain consolidates learning? Or maybe I'm wrong. But I think that there's some pretty strong research that shows that's why rest is so important.
For that age group.
Pardon?
Just like recess.
Recess, rest and recess.
R&R, baby. Rest and recreation or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Another item. What were?
I'm sorry, Chair. The other thing that I'm trying to find out on whether it's a DOE rule or a statute change is when a student who might need an IEP, if they enter kindergarten, they have to immediately start with the school district's collection. Whereas if they don't enter kindergarten, they can be assessed at fiddlers. And so the fiddler rule is up to age 6. Fiddlers can assess them. But if they enter kindergarten, the rule changes. And so that's something I'm interested in exploring, again, trying to determine if it's a DOE rule or a statute change. If we could just say that Fiddlers assesses all students, regardless of where they are attending school or anything, that they would assess all students up to age 6. I think that would take a heavy load off our kindergarten teachers and also get student services much faster.
For initial eligibility. So looking at initial eligibility being able to be determined through fiddlers or with the support of fiddlers through their 6th birthday. So we'll look, Dr. Brewer's going to look, I think would make the burden of evaluation and eligibility much lighter for kindergarten teachers, especially in the first semester. So how do you guys feel about addressing initial eligibility? Okay. I'm just writing that down. Okay, and then.
She said gifted. She mentioned.
Do we want to continue the gifted conversation?
I think we made a great argument last year. I didn't see it being received as well. Maybe y'all may have saw something different, but it was kind of like more like a lot of head shaking, but it really wasn't received.
One suggestion is expand it to ESC overall, because we also know that our allocation doesn't match our ESC needs. So I know in the past, Dr. Campbell, we were trying to separate that out to ensure that gifted received their fair share. But if we want to tackle that again, we might want to look at ESC overall. I believe my numbers are correct. We were short $29 million last year in what we needed for ESC services from what we actually received as an allocation.
So really, it's as big of a challenge as transportation is.
It is, ESC and transportation,
24 million?
ESE, transportation, and attendance, the big three.
yes.
So, I mean, we can just focus on an increase in ESE allocation
Yes.
specifically.
More so than just specifically saying.
Yeah, I mean, it would support all of it, so.
Yeah.
So an increase in ESE allocation. And then, that's 5. So then in looking at appropriation requests, what are the appropriation requests we're going to be going for? Is that,
The North End Elementary, in addition to the early learning match for the Lake Rim Middle School site.
okay, so the match for the request, the federal. Okay. Okay, so just to recap, we're going to attendance and continuing to strengthen the language, the transportation allocation, specifically dwindling it down to potentially land mass and number of schools, an early learning initiative focused on increasing the funded hours, whether that's incremental or one big lump, looking at initial eligibility expansion through age 6, being able to occur through fiddlers with the support of MCPS or any local district, regardless of where the student is attending school, and an increase in our ESE allocation with 2 appropriation requests for I've already named it, so let me rephrase, the North End Elementary School, and then a match for the federal appropriation for Lake Rim Middle School site.
Early learning? Is that,
Yes.
yeah.
That's 5 plus the 2 appropriations. Board Member Thrower.
And that's plenty, although I think we would want to consider and need to consider the ongoing disparity of everyone's pay, but teacher pay, especially if we were able to get a larger allocation for teacher pay, I think that would free up then funds to pay everyone else that deserves it. With this economy being what it is, and inflation being what it is, and the fact that I believe we are either rock bottom or the rock is very close to the bottom in our teacher pay in Florida. And I would comment that our public education system is arguably the most highly regulated and scrutinized public education systems in the country. And the compensation does not come close to matching the expectations. I'm just going to put it out there. It doesn't matter if it's my last year on the school board or not. I would have said it my first year. And I believe I have, maybe not in such direct terms. But we're going to lose this race unless we can do something about teacher pay that then filters down to our other employees. For us, transportation is also one of those big 3. You know, the churn of losing employees is preventing us from being as successful as fast as we want to be. To me, that's the bottom line. I mean, how many employees do we chew up and spit out within the first semester? I would like to see a calculation for that, you know? And the folks that stay,
What are they doing?
they're living on a prayer, you know, right now. I think we've all had to adjust our spending. But when you keep coming back and keep giving your best for kids and you keep reading that Florida is at the bottom, it doesn't match the effort, you know? The compensation does not match the effort and it doesn't match the outcomes. We have plenty of school systems in Florida, our own included, that have improved greatly, and we have others that are perennial aid districts, you know, and we shouldn't have to be coming back to the community all the time for something that is so fundamental. I mean, I wish we had included salary in our community-funded, you know, referendum. But we didn't this time around, and But again, there's risk to that, because then if it doesn't pass the next time, and if you do it as a bonus, it doesn't help with the teacher's final calculation for Social Security and retirement and everything else. You know, we keep trying to ask the best and yet cheapen out. Not us. I mean, we would pay it if we could. And we have when we've had it. You know, we've given some really, you know, decent raises and the $1,000 bonus that people have probably already long forgotten about. So, and I guess maybe I'm even more, it's more on my radar because we have had, you know, a fantastic principal of the year, fantastic teacher of the year, rookie teacher of the year that are the best ambassadors for what's best about public education. There's a lot more like them all around our district that deserve to be paid what they're worth, and filtering down employees all deserve to be paid what they're worth. I just know that the state can and should do better.
Side note, if we were able to actually fully fund ESE and transportation, we would have $50 million that could easily help cover teacher raises. Because we borrow from our general fund to cover ESE and transportation, right? I'm looking at our CFO. So if we were better funded in ESE and transportation, we would be able to carve out $1 million or $2 million to be able to cover staff. But because we're 50 million short on ESE and transportation, it puts and 50 million is actually under the number. It's more than that. So I'm just doing back of the napkin math here. It's probably closer to 55 or 60 million. If we were actually better funded in those positions, then we would have more money in the general fund, which is where teacher pay comes from.
And it's a recurring cost, so we have to make sure that our reserve funds and our general fund are high enough so we're not just living, you know, off of vacancies, which we were able to do for a long time. Well, now we don't have as many of those. So yes, 100%. But I think it's important to articulate that publicly, that, you know, we're talking about funding a lot of basic things that are also really important. And by doing that, it will enable us to do the salaries. It's really important for our employees to hear that, I think.
Okay.
So, Chair, I completely concur with what Board Member Brewer is saying. Keep in mind that traditionally Marion County Public Schools have had 5 to 6 priorities. However, we have the ability to put forward to the Florida School Boards Association as many priorities as we want for consideration for the statewide priority. So if there is specific language that we would like to recommend that addresses teacher pay in a very specific way, then absolutely, let's work on that language in the next 2 weeks and figure out what that is and submit that as a potential statewide priority.
It is a statewide.
And let the president of FSBA know.
Any FSBA member, it doesn't just have to be me on behalf of the board, which I always end up doing, but any FSBA member can submit priorities even right now for consideration for the platform development.
Sure. I was being a little tongue-in-cheek there, but I get it.
Okay. We good?
We're good.
Exciting.
Great.
Okay. Any public comment on this item, legislative agenda? Okay. All right, so we will revisit this in September, the
Yes.
first work session in September, right?
Yes, ma'am. And I will work on just some draft language for you all, so we'll have a starting point.
Okay.
Not a starting point, but a continuing.
Yes, we'll have a draft so that we can, make changes as needed. Okay. Well, then that is going to conclude our agenda for today. Meeting reminders, the next administrative briefing, and is there any public comment on legislative agenda? Sorry, I can't remember if I asked that.
You did.
Okay. Next administrative briefing and work session is August 20th, 2026 at 9 a.m. And a school board meeting is scheduled for August 25th at 5:30 p.m. Moving into board reports and board member reports, our clerk, Ms. Martinez-Young.
No, Madam Chair.
All right, Attorney Bowers.
Nothing from legal, thank you.
All right, Dr. Brewer.
Nothing additional. Thank you for this morning. Again, we can't say thank you enough to the entire Business Services Department. They've done an incredible job with this tentative budget. So thank you.
Okay, Board Member Thrower?
Thank you. Very positive. So many schools. I think with the whole board, we've probably visited every school, and some of them more than once. And there's just great energy across all of them, and just overcoming whatever little glitches that happen to occur and making sure that the kids truly feel welcome. So that's always a beautiful sight to see. With that being said, I know that we have had some pretty deep disruptions caused by our Skyward technology, and that was starting to happen in the summer, with trying to work on our summer graduation graduates and the timing of when things roll over. And Skyward's been around since, I believe, 2012. And I think it's been a pretty good workhorse, all this time. It's been dependable. So I don't know what's going on, but maybe with the added expectation of functionality and communication across other systems, they're dropping the ball. But I look forward to proposals and conversations about how we can explore not just making this better with Skyward, but maybe what other options may be out there. That can happen. They were the be-all, end-all for a long time, but maybe they've got some competition. I hope they do, because there's been some pretty deep issues created over the last couple of months. So I wanted to say that publicly, just so that our school communities know that we're aware, and that, we should all remain dissatisfied until we get something that's smooth. We just depend on it too much now, and it's affected almost every level, hasn't it? I mean, it really seems like it has.
And Ms. Thrower, like from the email I sent you yesterday, you could see every single department and classroom depend on integrations with Skyward. And so it has been a big challenge, but there are other programs. There are other districts in the state that there's two main ones, but we can explore what that would look like.
Great. Okay, Reverend Cummings?
No comments.
Okay, Dr. Campbell?
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Board Member Thrower, for bringing that up. My very same thought. It has become an antiquated system because of how we built it. Not because Skyward has failed, because the antiquated system we built is no longer able to receive updates. So they're updating all the new versions, but we have an old version, and anyway, I welcome the opportunity to explore additional technology options. Also, board, you should have in your inboxes calendar invite for 2 weeks from today. I was able to speak with the leadership of Florida School Boards Association, and there are 2 opportunities that you will have to join us while the Florida School Boards Association will be having our leadership development training in Marion County in 2 weeks. There are a couple of opportunities that you, as the Marion County School Board, can attend as an invitation from FSBA. One of them will be a specific conversation from members of the Florida Association of Counties talking about property tax initiatives and the impact it will have on us all. And that will be at 4 o'clock next Thursday, or excuse me, 2 Thursdays from today. And then what has traditionally been an FSBA leadership dinner where everyone comes together for just a nice dinner, that is being transformed this year for the first time as a networking and team building activity where instead of a dinner, we're having pizza and bowling in Marion County. And so you all also have that invite. Please let me know by accepting the invite, either one of them, if you intend to attend. During the bowling night, FSBA leadership and staff will be actually putting up together the teams that they want playing together. So I'll need to know who of you might be interested in attending either one of those. But on behalf of FSBA, I welcome you to attend the meetings that will be held in Marion County for the statewide leadership. And with that, I'll see you guys at our next meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Conrad.
Thank you, Chair. It's been a productive morning. Thank you again, Mr. Rios-Welch. We sure do appreciate all the time and effort you put into getting these presentations ready for us. And I also just want to touch on, Dr. Brewer mentioned at the beginning that all kindergartners show up for school today. So just remember that Carline is going to run a little slower today because they're loading up all those 5-year-olds into cars and in buses. So just wanted to say it's been a great back-to-school season, and so just if you can hold on to your patience for just a little bit longer, the next couple of days, today and tomorrow, will be a little bit challenging for dismissal as well as drop-off, and so that's all I have, Chair.
All right, thank you. Yes, thank you to Mr. Rios-Welch and the finance team for leading us through some complicated and complex times. We're grateful for your leadership, and we're grateful for a balanced budget. So with that, I am going to conclude my comments, and there being no further business, we will adjourn the work session at 11:32. Thank you.